Night nurse Danica Wells balances caring for patients with raising her teenage sister, leaving no room for romance in her exhausted life. When mysterious letters begin appearing in her locker from someone who sees her quiet acts of compassion, she's drawn into a connection with the last person she'd expect. Dr. Elias Chen may be known as the Iceman at Manhattan Memorial Hospital, but his secret letters reveal a soul who sees her when no one else does. Now, before we start this story, comment below from where you are watching us. The night shift at Manhattan Memorial Hospital was always the hardest. Danica Wells knew this better than anyone. At 29, she'd been working the overnight hours for 3 years now. The pay was better, and she needed every extra dollar she could get. "Mrs. Rodriguez, you need to take your medicine," Danica said gently, holding out a small paper cup with 2 pills. The elderly woman frowned. "I don't want it." "Where's my daughter?" Danica sat on the edge of the bed and took Mrs. Rodriguez's hand. "Your daughter will be here in the morning. She called earlier to check on you. Now, these pills will help you sleep and keep your blood pressure down. Don't you want to feel better when Maria comes to see you?" Mrs. Rodriguez's face softened. "You're a good girl. Such a good girl." She took the medicine and swallowed it with water. "That's right. Now try to get some rest." Danica adjusted the blankets and dimmed the lights before leaving the room. At the nurse's station, her colleague Jenny was scrolling through her phone. "How do you do that?" Jenny asked without looking up. "Do what?" "Get the difficult ones to cooperate. Mrs. Rodriguez has been giving everyone else a hard time." Danica shrugged. "You just have to listen to them. Most of the time they're just scared." It was the same at home with her sister Tasha. At 16, Tasha was full of attitude and questions. Since their mother died 2 years ago from breast cancer, Danica had become both sister and parent. It wasn't easy, but they were making it work. "Dr. Chen needs you in room 6, Jenny said. "The Williams boy isn't doing well." Danica's stomach tightened. 8-year-old Jaden Williams had been admitted 3 days ago with pneumonia. His condition had been improving, but children could take sudden turns. She hurried down the hallway to room 6, where Dr. Elias Chen was checking the boy's vitals. Dr. Chen was known throughout the hospital for 2 things: his brilliant medical mind and his cold personality. Nurses drew straws to avoid being assigned to his surgeries. "His oxygen levels are dropping," Dr. Chen said without looking up. "We need to intubate." Danica moved quickly, gathering the equipment, while Dr. Chen explained to the frightened parents what was happening. His voice was clinical, devoid of emotion. The mother began to cry. "Mr. and Mrs. Williams, I need you to step outside for a moment," Danica said, guiding them toward the door. "I promise we're doing everything we can for Jaden." "Will he be okay?" Mrs. Williams asked, clutching Danica's arm. Danica looked into her eyes. "Dr. Chen is the best doctor in this hospital. Your son is in good hands." Once the parents were outside, she returned to assist Dr. Chen. They worked in silence, their movements precise. Within minutes, Jaden was intubated and his oxygen levels began to stabilize. "Call respiratory therapy for a treatment," Dr. Chen ordered, "and increase his antibiotics. I want labs every 4 hours." "Yes, doctor." As he updated the chart, Danica checked Jaden's temperature and adjusted his blankets. She hummed softly, a habit she'd developed when caring for young patients. Dr. Chen paused, his pen hovering over the chart. For a moment he seemed to be listening. Then he resumed writing. "Notify me immediately if there's any change," he said, and left the room. Danica stayed with Jaden, holding his small hand and continuing to hum. She imagined Tasha at this age, how vulnerable she had been. Their mother had worked 2 jobs then, and Danica, still in high school, had often been the one to care for her sister. The rest of the shift was a blur of medications, vital checks, and comforting words to anxious patients. By the time 7 a.m. rolled around, Danica was exhausted. "You look beat," Jenny said as they prepared for shift change. "Double shift," Danica explained. "I'm covering for Maria." "Again? Girl, you need to learn to say no." Danica smiled tiredly. "Rent isn't going to pay itself, and Tasha wants to go to this music camp this summer. What about you? When's the last time you did something for yourself?" The question hung in the air as they walked to the locker room. Danica couldn't remember. After Brian had broken up with her last year, "You're always working or taking care of your sister, there's no room for me," she'd stopped trying to date. What was the point? Between her job and Tasha, there wasn't time for anything else. In the locker room, Danica opened her locker to change out of her scrubs. That's when she saw it, a white envelope sitting on top of her street clothes. Her name was written on the front in elegant handwriting, the ink a deep blue. "What's that?" Jenny asked, peering over her shoulder. "I don't know." Danica picked up the envelope, turning it over. There was no return address, no indication of who might have left it. Secret admirer, Jenny teased. Very funny, but Danica's heart beat a little faster as she opened the envelope and unfolded the letter inside. I watch the way you fight sleep to hold a scared patient's hand. You comfort the dying like they're going home. And in the quiet, I've come to understand what grace looks like. You don't know me, but I know what you carry, and I care more than I should. A friend. Danica read the words twice, then a third time. A strange feeling washed over her, part confusion, part something else she couldn't name. Well, what does it say? Jenny pressed. Danica folded the letter quickly and put it in her bag. Nothing, just a thank you note from a patient's family. Must be some thank you to make you blush like that. I'm not blushing, I'm just tired. Danica changed into her street clothes, trying to ignore the way her hands trembled slightly. Who would write something like that? And how did they know about the private moments she spent with patients? Was someone watching her? The thought was unsettling. As she left the hospital, Danica scanned the lobby, wondering if the mystery writer was there, observing her reaction. But the morning shift was already in full swing, and everyone was busy with their own tasks. Outside, the early spring air was cool against her face. She took a deep breath, trying to clear her mind. It was probably nothing. A prank, maybe, or a mix-up. The letter wasn't meant for her. But as she walked to the subway, she couldn't stop thinking about those words. You don't know me, but I know what you carry. What did that mean? And why did it make her feel so... Scene! Tasha was still asleep when Danica got home to their small two-bedroom apartment in Queens. She moved quietly, making coffee and checking the mail from yesterday. Bills, mostly. She set aside the one from Tasha's school, another reminder about the class trip that Danica couldn't afford. She sat at the kitchen table sipping her coffee and feeling the weight of exhaustion in her bones. Almost without meaning to, she took out the letter again. The handwriting was distinctive, confident strokes slightly slanted to the right. A man's handwriting, she thought, though she couldn't be sure. The paper was good quality, thick and cream-colored. I watch the way you fight sleep to hold a scared patient's hand. Someone at the hospital, then. Someone who worked nights. The list wasn't short, but it wasn't endless either. Doctors, nurses, orderlies, janitors, anyone could have access to the locker room. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jenny. That hot paramedic was asking about you again. You should give him a chance. Danica smiled faintly. Rick from the ambulance service had been trying to ask her out for weeks. He was nice enough, good-looking in a conventional way, but there was no spark, no connection. And after Brian and David before him and Michael before that, she was tired of trying to make relationships work with men who didn't understand her life. She texted back, not interested, but thanks for looking out. Setting down her phone, she looked at the letter once more. Was this a romantic gesture or something else? Either way, it felt invasive. Someone had been watching her private moments with patients, moments she thought were just between her and them. She decided to throw the letter away. Whatever this was, she didn't have time for games. But when she stood up, letter in hand, she found she couldn't do it. Instead, she folded it carefully and put it in the drawer of her bedside table, just in case. 3 days later, Danica was back on night shift. She'd almost forgotten about the letter until she saw Dr. Chen in the hallway, reviewing a chart. Something about his posture, the intensity of his concentration made her pause. Could it be him? The thought was ridiculous. Dr. Elias Chen was known for his emotional detachment, his clinical approach to everything. He wasn't the type to write anonymous love letters, if that's what it was. Besides, someone like him, from a wealthy medical dynasty, Harvard-educated, with model good looks, wouldn't be interested in someone like her. They existed in different worlds. Nurse Wells. His voice startled her. He was looking at her now, his dark eyes unreadable. I need you in room 12. Post-op assessment. Yes, doctor. As she followed him down the hall, she studied his back. He was tall, with broad shoulders that tapered to a narrow waist. His movements were precise, economical, nothing like the emotional, almost poetic person who had written that letter. Room 12 held a woman in her 60s who had undergone heart valve replacement surgery earlier that day. Dr. Chen checked her incision, listened to her heart and lungs. Mrs. Foster, how's your pain level? Danica asked, noting the woman's pinched expression. It's pretty bad, honey, Mrs. Foster admitted. Like a truck parked on my chest. Danica looked at Dr. Chen. She's due for pain medication. He nodded. Administer her scheduled dose and add an anti-nausea medication. She looks slightly green." As Danica prepared the injections, she noticed Dr. Chen speaking quietly to Mrs. Foster. His tone was still professional, but there was a gentleness there she hadn't heard before. He was explaining the surgery, what to expect during recovery. "You're going to feel like you've been hit by that truck for a few days," he said. "But you have an excellent nurse. Nurse Wells will take good care of you." Danica glanced up, surprised by the compliment, but Dr. Chen was already heading for the door. "I'll check on you in the morning, Mrs. Foster," he said, and was gone. "He's not as cold as everyone says," Mrs. Foster commented as Danica injected the medication into her IV. "There's a sadness about him." Danica made a non-committal sound. She wasn't interested in Dr. Chen's emotional state, but as she continued her rounds, she found herself thinking about the way he had spoken to Mrs. Foster. There was more to him than the hospital rumors suggested. At 3 a.m., the emergency room called up. They were sending a new admission, a young man who had overdosed. He was stable but needed monitoring. The patient, barely 20, was unconscious when they brought him in. His arms were tracked with needle marks, his body thin to the point of emaciation. "Third OD this month," the ER nurse said, handing Danica the chart. "Found in a bathroom at Port Authority. No ID, no family that we know of." Danica settled the young man, John Doe on his chart, into room 8. She hooked him up to the monitors, checked his vitals, and stood looking down at his face. So young, not much older than Tasha. She pulled up a chair and sat beside the bed. Her shift was quiet now, she could spare a few minutes. She took his hand, careful of the IV. "You're not alone," she said softly. "I'm here with you." She didn't know if he could hear her, but it didn't matter. No one should wake up in a strange place without a friendly face. Dr. Chen found her there an hour later, still holding the boy's hand. She had nodded off, her head resting against the edge of the bed. "Nurse Wells." She jerked awake, disoriented for a moment. "I'm sorry, I was just monitoring the patient." "Yes, I can see that." His tone gave nothing away. "You can go back to the nurse's station. I'll examine him." Danica stood, smoothing her scrubs. "His vitals have been stable. Respiratory rate is good. No signs of distress." Dr. Chen nodded, already focusing on the patient. Danica left the room, embarrassed at being caught sleeping, even if it was just for a few minutes. The rest of the shift passed without incident. As dawn approached, Danica began her final rounds, making sure her patients were comfortable before the day shift arrived. When she entered the locker room at 7:30, she had a strange feeling of déjà vu. She approached her locker cautiously, half expecting, "What?" But when she opened it, there was another envelope sitting on her clothes. Her heart began to race. She looked around, but she was alone in the locker room. With trembling fingers, she opened the envelope. "Last night you sat with the boy no one claimed, the one they called John Doe. For an hour I watched you hold his hand while he slept. You whispered that he wasn't alone, and for the first time, watching you, neither was I." A friend. Danica's breath caught. This had to be Dr. Chen. He was the only one who had seen her with the overdose patient, but that made no sense. Dr. Chen writing her anonymous letters. Impossible. Yet who else could it be? She put the letter in her bag quickly as the door opened, and other nurses came in, chatting about their shift. "You okay, Danica?" one of them asked. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "I'm fine," she said, changing into her street clothes. "Just tired." But as she left the hospital, her mind was racing. Someone was watching her. Someone was seeing moments she thought were private, and whoever it was, they were getting closer. The question was, what did they want from her? At home, Tasha was getting ready for school, her backpack open on the kitchen table, books and papers spilling out. "You're late," Danica said, checking the clock. "I overslept, and the math homework is killing me." Tasha shoved a notebook into her backpack. "Can I skip today, please?" "Absolutely not." Danica poured herself a cup of coffee. "Education is the only way up and out, I know." Tasha rolled her eyes. "You sound like Mom." The comparison warmed Danica's heart, even as it brought a pang of sadness. Their mother had been strict about school, determined that her daughters would have opportunities she never had. "Did you finish the math?" Danica asked. Tasha looked away. "Not exactly." "Let me see." Danica took the notebook Tasha reluctantly handed over. "Algebra." She had always been good at math. "Sit down. We'll finish it together." 20 minutes later, Tasha understood the problems enough to complete them on the bus. She hugged Danica before leaving. "You're the best, even if you are annoyingly responsible." Danica smiled. "Love you too." Straight home after school. I left money for pizza on the counter. Alone in the apartment, Danica finally let herself think about the second letter. She took it out, along with the first one, and laid them side by side on the kitchen table. Same handwriting, same quality paper, same intensity of emotion. Dr. Chen. It seemed impossible, and yet she remembered the way he had paused when she was humming to Jaden Williams, the way he had complimented her to Mrs. Foster. Small moments that suggested there was more to him than his cold reputation. But why anonymous letters? Why not just talk to her? Danica had no answers, but as she got ready for bed, she found herself looking forward to her next shift in a way she hadn't in a long time. Because maybe, just maybe, someone was finally seeing her, not just as a nurse or a sister or a caretaker, but as Danica, a woman who carried more than most people knew, and that felt both terrifying and thrilling all at once. The next 3 nights, Danica worked with one eye always on Dr. Chen. She noticed things she hadn't before, how he stayed late reviewing charts, how he checked on difficult patients one last time before leaving, how he always had a fresh cup of coffee at 2 a.m. But she found no proof that he was her mystery letter writer. If anything, he seemed more distant than usual, barely acknowledging her except to give medical orders. Nurse Wells, the patient in room 4 needs his dressing changed. No eye contact, no unnecessary words. The lab results for Mrs. Peterson are back. Adjust her insulin accordingly. Clinical, cold, not exactly the behavior of a secret admirer. By the 4th night, Danica had almost convinced herself the letters were a prank. Maybe Jenny was behind it, trying to add some excitement to Danica's life. Or maybe one of the other nurses had noticed how tired she looked lately and wanted to boost her spirits. She opened her locker at the beginning of her shift, half expecting to find another envelope. There was nothing. Oddly disappointed, she changed into her scrubs and headed to the nurse's station. Rough night ahead, Jenny warned her. We're short-staffed and Dr. Chen is on the warpath. Apparently some big-shot patient was admitted an hour ago, friend of his parents or something. Great, just what she needed. An overworked night and a demanding doctor. Who's the patient? Danica asked, checking the assignment board. Room 14, Herbert Chang, 82 years old. Pneumonia complicated by heart failure. Dr. Chen's treating him like he's royalty. Danica glanced at the chart. Herbert Chang was indeed getting special attention. Private room, extra monitoring. Direct orders from Dr. Chen to be notified about any change, no matter how small. Throughout the night, Dr. Chen checked on Mr. Chang hourly. Each time, Danica was there, updating him on vitals, medication responses, oxygen levels. Around 3 a.m., Mr. Chang's condition deteriorated rapidly. His oxygen saturation dropped, and his heart rate became erratic. "Call a code, doctor," Chen ordered, already starting chest compressions. The next 20 minutes were a blur of activity. Danica moved with practiced efficiency, administering medications, recording times, anticipating Dr. Chen's needs before he voiced them. Despite their efforts, Herbert Chang's heart stopped 3 times. Each time they brought him back, but Danica could see in Dr. Chen's eyes that the prognosis was grim. Finally, Mr. Chang stabilized enough to be transferred to the ICU. As the transport team wheeled him out, Dr. Chen stood in the doorway, his shoulders uncharacteristically slumped. "Doctor, are you all right?" Danica asked. He straightened immediately, his face resuming its usual mask of detachment. "Fine. Update the chart with all medications administered during the code. I'll be in my office." He walked away without waiting for her response. An hour later, after finishing her documentation, Danica passed by Dr. Chen's office. The door was ajar, and she could see him sitting at his desk, head in his hands. She hesitated, then knocked softly. "What is it?" His voice was sharp. "I just wanted to check if you needed anything else for Mr. Chang's case." "No, the chart is complete." He didn't look up. Danica should have left then. It wasn't her place to intrude on a doctor's private moment, but something made her step into the office. "Was he a friend of your family?" Dr. Sayers. Chen looked up, surprised by the personal question. For a moment, Danica thought he would dismiss her. Then his expression softened slightly. "My mentor. He taught me in medical school. The best diagnostician I've ever known." He paused, "and the closest thing I had to a father figure." The admission clearly cost him. His jaw tightened, as if he regretted the words as soon as they left his mouth. "I'm sorry," Danica said simply. "I hope he pulls through." "Doctor." Chen nodded once, then turned his attention to the papers on his desk. A clear dismissal. Back at the nurse's station, Danica couldn't stop thinking about the glimpse of vulnerability she'd seen in Dr. Chen's eyes. It humanized him in a way that made her uncomfortable. It was easier to think of him as the cold, brilliant surgeon everyone feared, easier to dismiss the possibility that he could be the one writing those letters. At the end of her shift, Danica was so tired she could barely keep her eyes open. The night had been non-stop. 2 new admissions after Mr. Chang, a patient who pulled out his IV and bled all over the floor, and endless documentation. She trudged to the locker room, dreading the subway ride home. All she wanted was her bed and at least 6 hours of uninterrupted sleep before Tasha came home from school. When she opened her locker, she froze. Another envelope. Her hands trembled as she opened it. "I saw the moment your hands started to shake after losing that boy in room 6. You stepped outside, straightened your back, and walked into room 7 like you hadn't just broken. You don't cry where people can see, but if you ever need a place to fall, I hope you find me." Room 6. The Williams boy, Jaden. Danica sat heavily on the bench, the letter clutched in her hand. She remembered that night clearly, though she'd tried to forget it. Jaden's pneumonia had turned septic. Despite everything they did, his little body couldn't fight anymore. He was gone before his parents could say goodbye. Danica had held herself together until she stepped into the hallway. Then her hands had started to shake uncontrollably. She had ducked into a supply closet, pressed her forehead against the cool metal shelves, and taken 10 deep breaths. She hadn't cried. There wasn't time for that. Room 7 needed her. No one had seen her moment of weakness. No one, except the letter writer. She read the words again. "But if you ever need a place to fall, I hope you find me." Who was this person? And what did they want from her? "You look like you haven't slept," Tasha said, when Danica picked her up from basketball practice that afternoon. "Thanks. You really know how to make a girl feel special." Tasha grinned. "Just saying. You should take better care of yourself. Isn't that what you're always telling me?" "Do as I say, not as I do." Danica yawned. "How was practice?" "Coach says I might start next game." Tasha's voice was casual, but Danica could hear the pride underneath. "That's great. I'm coming to watch, by the way. I switched shifts with Maria." Tasha's face lit up. "Really? You'll be there? Front row, embarrassing you with a big sign and everything." They laughed together, and for a moment, Danica forgot about mysterious letters and vulnerable doctors. This was what mattered. Tasha's smile, the normalcy of their banter, the small victories they celebrated together. At home, they made dinner together. Spaghetti, one of the few meals in Danica's limited cooking repertoire. As they ate, Tasha talked about school, friends, the latest drama in her social circle. Danica listened, asking questions, offering advice when asked. "There's this dance coming up," Tasha said, twirling pasta around her fork. "Winter formal. Sounds fun. Are you going with your friends?" Tasha hesitated. "Well, that's the thing. Jason Miller kind of asked me to go with him." Danica raised her eyebrows. "Jason Miller? The same Jason Miller you called an immature jerk last month? He's grown up a lot since then." Tasha's cheeks flushed. "Anyway, I need a dress. Nothing fancy, just something nice." Money. It always came back to money. Danica did some quick mental calculations. If she picked up an extra shift this weekend, "We'll figure something out," she promised. "Maybe we can look at that consignment shop on Broadway. They have nice things." Tasha's face fell slightly, then brightened with forced enthusiasm. "Yeah, totally. That's a good idea." Later, after Tasha was in bed, Danica sat at the kitchen table with her bills spread out in front of her. Rent, utilities, groceries, Tasha's basketball fees, her own student loan payments. There wasn't much left over for winter formal dresses. She took out the letters, 3 of them now, and read them again. Each one saw her in a way no one else did. Each one recognized the weight she carried, but they were just words on paper. They didn't help pay the bills or buy Tasha a dress. They didn't make the exhaustion go away. Still, as she got ready for bed, Danica found herself wondering about tomorrow's shift. Would there be another letter? And was she finally ready to find out who was writing them? The hospital was unusually quiet the next night. No new admissions. All patients stable. Even Jenny commented on it. "It's almost spooky," she said. "Like the calm before a storm." "Don't say that," Danica warned. "You'll jinx us." But the quiet held, and Danica found herself with time to actually sit down and finish her charting before midnight. She was just about to take her break when Dr. Chen appeared at the nurse's station. "Nurse Wells, I need you to assist with Mr. Chang. He's back from ICU." Danica looked up, surprised. "Already? I thought his condition was critical." "It was. It still is. But he insisted on coming back to this floor. Dr. Chen's expression was unreadable. He said the care was better here. They walked to room 14 together, not speaking. Danica was acutely aware of him beside her. His height, the faint scent of his aftershave, the way he walked with purpose, but never rushed. Herbert Chang looked much worse than when Danica had last seen him. His skin had a greyish tint, and each breath seemed to require enormous effort despite the oxygen mask. "Mr. Chang, this is Nurse Wells," Dr. Chen said. "She'll be taking care of you tonight." The old man's eyes flickered open. He studied Danica for a moment, then nodded slightly. "Good," he said, his voice barely audible. "Elias trusts you." Danica glanced at Dr. Chen, but his face revealed nothing. "Let's check your vitals, Mr. Chang," she said, moving to the bedside. For the next hour, she and Dr. Chen worked together, adjusting medications, positioning Mr. Chang for optimal breathing, reviewing his latest lab results. They moved around each other with an ease that surprised Danica. It was as if they had been working together for years, anticipating each other's needs without words. When Mr. Chang finally dozed off, Dr. Chen motioned for Danica to follow him into the hallway. "He's dying," he said bluntly. "The antibiotics aren't working. His organs are starting to fail." Danica nodded. She had seen enough dying patients to recognize the signs. "How long?" "Days, maybe less." His voice was clinical, but his eyes held a sadness he couldn't quite mask. "He knows. He's made his peace with it. No extraordinary measures, just comfort care." "I understand." Dr. Chen hesitated, then added, "He asked for you specifically, said he wanted a nurse who wasn't afraid of death. I think he must have seen you during the code." Danica wasn't sure how to respond to that. "I'll take good care of him." "I know you will." For the first time, Dr. Chen looked directly into her eyes. "That's why I requested you." Before she could process what he meant, he was walking away, his white coat billowing slightly behind him. Throughout the night, Danica checked on Mr. Chang regularly. Sometimes he was awake, his eyes following her as she adjusted his IV or checked his oxygen. Once he asked her to sit with him for a moment. "Tell me, Nurse Wells," he said, each word an effort. "Are you happy?" The question caught her off guard. "Happy? In your work? In your life?" Danica considered how to answer. "I'm content," she said finally. "I have my sister, my job, it's enough." Mr. Chang shook his head slightly. "Not the same as happy." "No," she admitted. "I suppose it's not." He closed his eyes, and for a moment, Danica thought he had fallen asleep. Then he spoke again, so softly she had to lean closer to hear. "Elias isn't happy either. Too much, like his father, afraid to feel." Danica didn't know what to say to that. It wasn't her place to discuss Dr. Chen's personal life. "Rest now, Mr. Chang," she said gently. "Save your strength." He opened his eyes again, fixing her with a surprisingly sharp gaze. "Life is short, even when it's long. Remember that." The words stayed with Danica for the rest of her shift. Life is short, even when it's long. What did that mean for her? For her endless routine of work and home, bills and responsibilities? At the end of her shift, she approached her locker with a mix of anticipation and dread. Would there be another letter? There was. "Tonight I watched you with the man who taught me everything that matters. You didn't know who he was to me, but you treated him with the same gentle respect you give to every patient. And I realized kindness isn't what you do, it's who you are. I want to know that person. Beyond the uniform, beyond the professional smile, I want to know what makes you laugh, what keeps you awake at night, what dreams you've set aside to carry everyone else's." No signature this time, not even a friend. Danica sat on the bench, her heart pounding. This was different from the other letters, more personal, more direct. I want to know that person. It had to be Dr. Chen. The timing, the reference to Mr. Chang as someone who taught him everything that matters. It all fit. But why like this? Why not just talk to her directly? As if in answer to her unspoken question, the locker room door opened. Dr. Chen stood there, looking as surprised to see her as she was to see him. "Nurse Wells, I thought everyone had left." Danica quickly folded the letter, but not before his eyes flickered to it. Something passed across his face. Recognition? Guilt? She couldn't tell. "Just getting my things," she said, standing up. "How's Mr. Chang?" "Resting comfortably." He paused. "Thank you for your care tonight. He thinks highly of you. He's only known me for one shift. He's an excellent judge of character." Dr. Chen stepped further into the room. "He told me once that you can tell everything you need to know about a person by watching how they handle three things: pressure, failure, and someone else's pain." Danica thought about that. "And what did he say about you?" A hint of a smile touched Dr. Chen's lips. That I was excellent under pressure, too hard on myself about failure, and uncomfortable with other people's pain. That sounds accurate, Danica said before she could stop herself. To her surprise, Dr. Chen laughed, a short rusty sound, as if he didn't use it often. Yes, well, we can't all be naturals like you. Was he flirting with her? Danica couldn't tell. This was the longest non-medical conversation they'd ever had. I should go, she said, gathering her things. My sister will be wondering where I am. Dr. Chen nodded, stepping aside to let her pass. Of course. Have a good day, Nurse Wells. You too, Dr. Chen. As she walked past him, their eyes met briefly. There was something in his gaze, a question perhaps, or an invitation. But then it was gone, and he was just her colleague again, polite but distant. Outside the hospital, Danica took a deep breath of the morning air. Her mind was spinning with questions. If Dr. Chen was the letter writer, why not admit it? And if he wasn't, who could it be? Tasha was already up when Danica got home, dressed for school and making toast. You're up early, Danica said, dropping her bag on a chair. History test first period. Tasha buttered her toast with concentration. How was work? Quiet, actually. For once. Danica poured herself a cup of coffee. Hey, I was thinking about your dress for the dance. What if we go shopping this weekend? My treat. Tasha looked up, surprised. Really? But I thought money was tight. It is. But this is important. Danica smiled. Life is short, even when it's long. What does that mean? I'm not entirely sure, but I think it means we shouldn't put off the things that matter. Tasha studied her sister's face. Something happened at work, didn't it? You seem different. Danica thought about the letters, about Dr. Chen's almost smile, about Mr. Chang's penetrating questions. Maybe something is happening, she admitted. I'm not sure yet. After Tasha left for school, Danica tried to sleep, but her mind wouldn't quiet down. She kept thinking about the letters, trying to match the emotional, eloquent words with Dr. Chen's cool demeanor. It didn't make sense, and yet there had been moments. The sadness in his eyes when he spoke of Mr. Chang, the way he had laughed at her blunt assessment of his character, the brief connection she'd felt in the locker room. Eventually, she gave up on sleep and called Jenny. I need your help with something, she said when her friend answered. If it's another double shift, the answer is no. I have a date tonight. Not that, I need information about Dr. Chen. There was a pause on the other end. Elias Chen, the Iceman? Why? Danica hesitated. She hadn't told anyone about the letters, not even Jenny. Just curious, he seems different lately. Different how? I don't know. Less cold, maybe. Danica twisted the phone cord around her finger. Do you know anything about his background? His family? Jenny laughed. Only what everyone knows, medical royalty. His father is Harold Chen, chief of surgery at Mount Sinai. His mother is Diana Chen, head of cardiology at Columbia. The Chen dynasty, they call them. And Elias? What's his story? Let me think. Harvard Medical School, top of his class. Residency at Johns Hopkins. Could have gone anywhere, but chose our little hospital instead. Rumor is he had some kind of falling out with his father. What kind of falling out? No idea. But he never mentions his family and they never visit. Strange for Chinese families, right? They're usually so close. Danica thought about that. A man estranged from his family, dedicated to his work. A man who might be watching her from a distance, seeing things in her that others missed. Thanks, Jenny, that helps. Why the sudden interest? Don't tell me you've got a thing for Dr. Freeze. Of course not, Danica said quickly. Just trying to understand him better. For work. Uh-huh. Sure? Jenny's voice was skeptical. Just be careful, okay? Men like that, rich, brilliant, emotionally unavailable, they're not good boyfriend material. Trust me, I know. After they hung up, Danica took out the letters again, reading them one by one. They showed such emotional intelligence, such sensitivity. Could they really be from the same man known throughout the hospital for his clinical detachment? And if they were, what did he want from her? The questions followed her into her dreams when she finally fell asleep. In them, she was walking through the hospital, following a figure in a white coat who always turned a corner just as she reached him, and in her hands were the letters, glowing like beacons in the darkened corridors. 2 days later, Danica and Tasha went dress shopping. They visited 3 stores before finding something that met both their requirements. Pretty enough for Tasha, affordable enough for Danica. This is it, Tasha said, twirling in front of the mirror. The dark blue dress was simple but elegant, with a modest neckline and a flared skirt that hit just above the knee. You look beautiful, Danica said, swallowing the lump in her throat. When had her little sister grown up so much? Not too grown up, Tasha asked, reading her thoughts. Just right. Danica checked the price tag again. It was more than she'd planned to spend, but the joy on Tasha's face was worth it. We'll take it. On the subway ride home, Tasha couldn't stop talking about the dance, what shoes she'd wear, how she'd do her hair, what Jason had said when he asked her. He was so nervous, she said, laughing. He kept stumbling over his words. It was cute. Danica smiled, enjoying her sister's excitement. This was what normal teenagers should be worried about. Dresses and dates, not bills and guardianship papers. What about you? Tasha asked suddenly. What about me? When's the last time you went on a date? Or did something fun just for yourself? Danica shrugged. I don't have time for dating. That's just an excuse. You make time for me, for work, for everyone except yourself. Tasha's voice was serious now. Mom wouldn't want you to put your life on hold forever. The words hit Danica harder than she expected. Was that what she was doing? Putting her life on hold? I'm fine, she said automatically. Really? Tasha didn't look convinced, but she let it drop. As they exited the subway, she said casually, So, there's no one at work you're interested in? No cute doctors or anything? Dr. Chen's face flashed in Danica's mind. No, she said too quickly. No one. Tasha's eyes narrowed. You're lying. You're doing that thing with your eyebrow that you always do when you're lying. I am not. Danica touched her eyebrow self-consciously. And there's no one. End of discussion. But as they walked home, the letters seemed to burn in her memory. I want to know that person. Beyond the uniform, beyond the professional smile. Was she ready to be known like that? To let someone see past the strong front she'd maintained for so long? That night, Danica returned to work with mixed feelings. Part of her hoped for another letter, another glimpse into the mind of someone who seemed to understand her so well. Part of her dreaded the complication it would bring to her already full life. Mr. Chang was her first stop. His condition had worsened overnight, his breathing more labored, his skin taking on a bluish tint around his lips. Good evening, Mr. Chang, she said, adjusting his oxygen. How are you feeling today? Like a man, with one foot in the grave. Despite his condition, his eyes were alert, watching her movements. Has Elias been to see you? The question startled her. Dr. Chen, he's my supervisor. I see him every shift. Mr. Chang made a dismissive sound. Not what I meant. Before Danica could ask what he did mean, the door opened and Dr. Chen himself walked in. He looked tired, with dark circles under his eyes. Mr. Chang, your lab results are... He stopped when he saw Danica. Nurse Wells, I didn't realize you were on duty tonight. Just started my shift. She stepped back from the bed. Mr. Chang's oxygen saturation is at 92%, down 3 points from yesterday. Dr. Chen nodded, his focus returning to the patient. The antibiotics aren't working as well as we'd hoped. We may need to try a different approach. Mr. Chang shook his head weakly. No more approaches. Just comfort. Now. A shadow passed over Dr. Chen's face. Herbert, we still have options. There's a new antibiotic. No. The word was firm despite the old man's frailty. My time is ending. Accept it, as I have. Dr. Chen's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue further. We'll increase your pain medication then, make you more comfortable. Good. Mr. Chang's eyes moved between Danica and Dr. Chen. Now, leave us. I want you to speak with Nurse Wells, alone. Dr. Chen hesitated, then nodded curtly. I'll be back to check on you later. When they were alone, Mr. Chang gestured weakly for Danica to sit in the chair beside his bed. He's a good doctor, he said, but a stubborn man. Yes, I've noticed. Danica couldn't help smiling. He respects you. Mr. Chang's breathing was labored, but he seemed determined to speak. Rare for him. We work well together, Danica said neutrally. More than that, Mr. Chang's eyes were knowing. He sees you. The words echoed those in the letters so closely that Danica's heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? Elias watches people, always has, sees what others miss. Mr. Chang paused to catch his breath. His father taught him to be cold, professional, no emotion, but his heart, too big to hide completely. Danica didn't know how to respond. Was Mr. Chang confirming her suspicions about the letters, or was this just the rambling of a dying man? You've been good for him, Mr. Chang continued. He smiles when he speaks of you. Small, but there. Doctor, Chen rarely speaks to me outside of patient care, Danica said. Mr. Chang's lips curved in a weak smile. Words aren't his only language. Before Danica could ask what he meant, Mr. Chang's eyes closed, his breathing evened out, and she realized he had fallen asleep. The conversation, brief as it was, had exhausted him. She checked his vitals once more, then left the room, her mind whirling with questions. At the nurse's station, Dr. Chen was updating a chart. He looked up as she approached. "How is he?" he asked. "Resting." The conversation tired him out. Dr. Chen nodded, his expression unreadable. "What did he want to talk to you about?" Danica hesitated. "You, actually." A flicker of surprise crossed his face. "Me?" "He said you're stubborn, and that you respect me, which is apparently rare for you." Dr. Chen's lips twitched, almost a smile. "Herbert always was direct. He also said you see things others miss." Danica watched his face carefully. "That words aren't your only language." Dr. Chen went very still. For a moment Danica thought she saw something in his eyes, recognition perhaps, or alarm, but then it was gone, replaced by his usual professional mask. "Herbert tends to be cryptic when he's medicated," he said, returning his attention to the chart. "I wouldn't read too much into it." But his hand had tightened on his pen, and Danica was certain now. Dr. Elias Chen was hiding something, and it had to do with her. The rest of the shift was busy, with 2 new admissions and a patient who developed complications after surgery. Danica and Dr. Chen crossed paths several times, but he was all business, his manner as cool and efficient as ever. By the time her break came around at 2 a.m., Danica was exhausted. She headed to the break room, hoping for a few minutes of quiet and a cup of coffee. The room was empty except for Jenny, who was scrolling through her phone. "There you are," Jenny said, looking up. "I've been trying to catch you all night." "What's up?" Danica poured herself a cup of coffee. "You know that hot paramedic who's always asking about you?" "Rick?" Danica nodded warily. "I may have mentioned to him that you're free this weekend, and he may have asked if you'd go to dinner with him on Saturday." "Jenny, you didn't—" "I did. And before you say no, hear me out." Jenny leaned forward earnestly. "He's cute, he has a steady job, and he's crazy about you." "What's the downside?" Danica sighed. "I'm not interested, that's the downside." "Because of Dr. Freeze?" Jenny's eyes widened. "Oh my God, you are into him." "I'm not into anyone," Danica insisted. "I'm just not looking to date right now." "Everyone's looking to date. Some people just don't know it yet." Jenny stood up. "Anyway, Rick will be calling you. At least consider it, okay? For me?" After Jenny left, Danica sat alone, staring into her coffee. Why had she reacted so strongly to the idea of a date with Rick? He was nice enough, attractive, friendly. Under normal circumstances, she might have been interested, but these weren't normal circumstances, not with the letters, not with the way Dr. Chen had looked at her when she mentioned Mr. Chang's cryptic words. The rest of the shift passed in a blur of routine tasks. Danica checked on Mr. Chang twice more, but he was sleeping peacefully, his condition neither better nor worse. When 7 a.m. finally came, Danica headed to the locker room with that same mix of anticipation and dread. Would there be another letter? There was. She recognized the envelope immediately, the same high-quality paper, her name written in that now familiar handwriting. With trembling fingers, she opened it. "Tonight I watched you buy a chocolate bar from the vending machine. You broke it in half and gave the bigger piece to the young man in room 3 who just found out his cancer has spread. You didn't know I was there. You didn't do it for recognition or praise. You did it because kindness is your first language. I've been writing these letters for weeks now, telling you what I see, but I realize I haven't been fair. I've been hiding behind words on paper, afraid to show myself. If you want to know who I am, meet me in the hospital garden tomorrow night at midnight. If you don't come, I'll understand, and I won't bother you with more letters. The choice is yours." Danica read the letter twice, her heart pounding. Tomorrow night, midnight. She would finally know who had been watching her, writing to her, seeing her in ways no one else had. But did she want to know? What if it wasn't Dr. Chen? What if it was someone else entirely? Someone she didn't feel this strange growing connection with, or worse, what if it was Dr. Chen and he turned out to be nothing like the person who wrote these beautiful, insightful letters? "Danica, you okay?" She looked up to see Jenny watching her with concern. "Fine," Danica said, quickly folding the letter. "Just tired." "You sure? You look like you've seen a ghost." "Really, I'm fine." Danica put the letter in her bag and began changing out of her scrubs. "How was your night?" Jenny launched into a story about a difficult patient, and Danica nodded in all the right places, but her mind was elsewhere. Tomorrow night, midnight, a decision to make. At home, Tasha was getting ready for school when Danica walked in. "How was work?" she asked, pouring cereal into a bowl. "Interesting." Danica set her bag down. "How did your history test go?" "Aced it." Tasha grinned. "All that studying paid off." "I knew it would." Danica smiled proudly. "Listen, I might need to go back to the hospital tomorrow night for a few hours. Would you be okay on your own?" Tasha raised an eyebrow. "I'm 16, not 6. I think I can manage a few hours alone without burning the place down." I know. I just worry." "You always worry." Tasha studied her sister's face. "What's at the hospital that's so important? Don't tell me you picked up another shift." "No, nothing like that. Just something I need to take care of." Tasha's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "Does this something have anything to do with that doctor you're not interested in?" "What?" "No." Danica felt her cheeks warm. "It's work-related. That's all." "Uh-huh." Tasha clearly didn't believe her. "Well, whatever it is, I hope it's something for you for once, not for everyone else." After Tasha left for school, Danica took the letters out of her bag and spread them on the kitchen table. 5 of them now, each one more personal than the last. Each one seeing a different facet of who she was. The first one, "I watched the way you fight sleep to hold a scared patient's hand." The second, "Last night, you sat with the boy no one claimed." The third, "I saw the moment your hand started to shake after losing that boy in room 6. The fourth, "Tonight I watched you with the man who taught me everything that matters." And now the fifth, "Tonight I watched you buy a chocolate bar from the vending machine." Small moments, private moments, things no one else had noticed or cared about. The writer had been watching her for weeks, maybe longer. In another context, it might have been creepy, but there was nothing threatening in the letters. Just admiration, understanding, and a growing connection that Danica couldn't deny she felt too. Dr. Chen made the most sense. He was always there, always observing, and there had been moments, brief flashes of something beneath his cool exterior, the way he'd spoken about Mr. Chang, the almost smile when she'd called him stubborn, the look in his eyes when she'd quoted Mr. Chang's cryptic words. But if it was him, why the secrecy? Why not just talk to her directly? "Afraid to show myself," the latest letter had said. Was that it? Was Dr. Elias Chen, brilliant surgeon from a prestigious medical family, afraid of rejection? The thought was both flattering and confusing. Danica's phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. An unknown number. "Hello? Danica? It's Rick. Rick Sanderson. From the ambulance service?" "Right," the paramedic Jenny had mentioned. "Hi, Rick, how are you?" Good. Listen, I was wondering if you'd like to get dinner Saturday night. Nothing fancy, just that Italian place on 23rd Street. Danica hesitated. The old Danica would have said no automatically. Too busy, too tired, too focused on work and Tasha to think about dating. But the letters had awakened something in her. A reminder that she was more than a nurse, more than a sister and guardian. She was a woman with her own wants and needs. Still, the thought of dinner with Rick held no appeal compared to the prospect of meeting the letter writer. "I'm sorry, Rick. I can't this Saturday." "Oh," he sounded disappointed. "Maybe another time?" "Maybe," she said, not wanting to be unkind. There's a lot going on right now." After they hung up, Danica sat with her decision. Tomorrow night she would go to the hospital garden. She would meet the person behind the letters, and whatever happened next, at least she would know. The next day dragged by with excruciating slowness. Danica tried to keep busy, cleaning the apartment, doing laundry, helping Tasha with homework, but her mind kept returning to the meeting ahead. By 11 p.m. Tasha was in bed, and Danica was getting ready to leave. She changed her outfit 3 times before settling on simple jeans and a sweater. This wasn't a date, she reminded herself, just a meeting to satisfy her curiosity. The hospital was quiet when she arrived. She nodded to the security guard, who recognized her from her shifts. "Forgot something?" he asked. "Just need to check on a patient," she lied. "I won't be long." The garden was in the center of the hospital, an oasis of green surrounded by the sterile white of the medical center. During the day, it was filled with patients and visitors seeking fresh air and a respite from the hospital environment. At night, it was usually deserted. Danica checked her watch as she approached the garden doors. 11:55 p.m. She was early. The garden was lit only by a few small path lights, casting long shadows among the plants. Danica sat on a bench near the central fountain, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure anyone nearby would hear it. At exactly midnight, she heard the garden door open. Footsteps approached slowly, deliberately. Danica stood, peering into the shadows. A figure emerged from the darkness. Tall, broad-shouldered, familiar. Dr. Elias Chen. He stopped a few feet away from her, his face partially shadowed, his expression unreadable. "You came," he said simply. Danica nodded, not trusting her voice. "I wasn't sure you would." He took a step closer, and now she could see his face clearly. The usual mask of professional detachment was gone, replaced by a vulnerability she'd never seen before. "It was you," she said. "The letters." "Yes." "Why?" The question that had been burning in her mind for weeks. "Why like this? Why not just talk to me?" Dr. Chen Elias looked away for a moment, gathering his thoughts. When he looked back, his eyes held a raw honesty that took her breath away. "Because I'm not good with words. Not spoken ones anyway." He gestured helplessly. "I've spent my entire life being told that emotions are a weakness, that a surgeon must be detached, clinical. My father's favorite phrase was, 'Leave your heart at the door.' And I believed him. I became what he wanted. The perfect doctor. Cold, efficient, alone." He paused, then continued more softly. "And then I saw you. Really saw you. The way you are with patients, with colleagues. The way you give pieces of yourself without hesitation. And I realized how empty my life had become." Danica's heart was racing. "So the letters were the only way I knew to reach out, to tell you what I saw, what I felt." He took another step closer. "I understand if you're angry, if you feel I've invaded your privacy. But everything I wrote was true. You are extraordinary, Danica Wells." It was the first time he'd used her first name. The sound of it in his voice sent a shiver through her. "I'm not angry," she said softly. "I'm confused, flattered, a little scared." "Scared? The person who wrote those letters sees so much good in me. What if I can't live up to that?" Elias shook his head. "You already do. Every day." They stood in silence for a moment, the air between them charged with unspoken feelings. "Herbert knows, doesn't he?" Danica asked suddenly. "About the letters." A small smile touched Elias's lips. "Herbert knows everything. He caught me writing one of them. Said it was about time I stopped hiding." "Is that why he said those things to me? About you seeing people? About words not being your only language?" "Probably. Herbert has been trying to get me to embrace my humanity, as he puts it, for years." Elias's expression sobered. "He doesn't have much time left. Days at most." "I'm sorry," Danica said. "I know he means a lot to you. He's the father I wish I'd had." Elias took a deep breath. "He's also the one who convinced me to meet you tonight, to stop hiding behind letters and take a risk." "And what risk is that?" Danica asked, though she thought she knew the answer. Elias stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the warmth of him, smell the faint scent of his aftershave. "The risk of letting someone see me, really see me." His voice was low, intimate. "The way I've seen you." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted to. When she didn't, he touched her face gently, his fingers tracing the curve of her cheek. "I don't know what happens next," he admitted. "I'm not good at this, but I know that when I'm with you, I feel more like myself than I have in years." Danica's heart was pounding so hard she could barely breathe. This wasn't what she had expected. It was better, more real. "I don't know what happens next either," she whispered, "but I'd like to find out." In the quiet of the hospital garden, surrounded by shadows and the soft sound of the fountain, Danica felt something shift inside her, a door opening, a possibility taking shape. And for the first time in years, she wasn't thinking about bills or responsibilities or all the reasons why she couldn't have this. She was just feeling, present, alive. Elias's hand was warm against her face, his eyes asking a question she was finally ready to answer. "I see you too," she said softly. "The real you. Not just the doctor everyone fears. And I like what I see." His smile then, full and genuine, was like watching the sun rise after a long night. And when he leaned down to kiss her, Danica rose to meet him, her heart opening to a possibility she had long ago stopped believing in. The kiss was gentle, tentative at first, then deeper as the walls between them finally began to crumble. Neither of them noticed the figure watching from the hospital window above. Herbert Chang, leaning heavily on an IV pole, smiled to himself before turning back to his room. "About time," he whispered to the empty corridor. "About time." The next morning, Danica woke with a strange feeling, something between disbelief and joy. Had last night really happened? Had Dr. Elias Chen, the hospital's Iceman, really confessed to writing those beautiful letters? Had they really kissed in the garden under the midnight sky? Her phone buzzed with a text message, answering her question. "Good morning. I hope you slept well. I'm sorry our time was cut short last night, emergency surgery. Would you have dinner with me tonight? Elias." So it was real. All of it. Danica texted back before she could overthink it. "Yes, I'd like that." His response came immediately. "I'll pick you up at 7, and Danica, thank you for seeing me." She smiled at the echo of their conversation in the garden. She did see him, the real man behind the professional mask, and she wanted to see more. Tasha wandered into the kitchen, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "You got in late last night. Everything okay at the hospital?" "Everything's fine." Danica tried to keep her voice casual. "Better than fine, actually." Tasha poured herself a bowl of cereal, eyeing her sister suspiciously. "What's going on? You're smiling like you won the lottery." "I have a date tonight." Tasha's spoon clattered against her bowl. "What? With who?" "Dr. Chen. Elias." "The one you're not interested in?" Tasha's expression was triumphant. "I knew it. I totally knew it." "It's just dinner," Danica said, though her racing heart suggested it was much more than that. "Yeah, right." Tasha grinned. "So what happened? Did he finally ask you out?" Danica hesitated. The full story of the letters seemed too private, too precious to share just yet. "Something like that," she said. "It's complicated. Complicated is good. Complicated means interesting." Tasha's eyes lit up. "What are you going to wear? Please don't say scrubs." Danica laughed. "I wasn't planning to, but I haven't exactly had time to update my wardrobe lately." "Leave it to me." Tasha jumped up from the table. "Operation First Date Makeover starts now. We're going to make Dr. Dreamy's jaw hit the floor." For the rest of the day, Tasha was in full stylist mode, digging through Danica's closet, rejecting most options, and finally settling on a simple blue dress that Danica had bought years ago, but rarely worn. "It matches your eyes," Tasha said, "and it actually fits in all the right places, unlike those baggy scrubs you always wear." Danica looked at herself in the mirror, hardly recognizing the woman reflected back, with her hair down instead of in its usual practical bun, and the dress highlighting curves usually hidden under shapeless uniforms. She looked pretty, feminine. Not just a nurse or a guardian, but a woman. "There she is," Tasha said softly, meeting Danica's eyes in the mirror. "The sister who's been hiding behind responsibility for too long." Danica blinked back unexpected tears. "When did you get so wise?" "I learned from the best." Tasha hugged her from behind. "Mom would be so proud of you. You know that, right? Not just for taking care of me, but for finally doing something for yourself." At 7 p.m. exactly, the doorbell rang. Tasha squealed with excitement, while Danica took a deep breath to calm her nerves. "Remember," Tasha said as Danica headed for the door, "don't talk about work all night, and don't come home before 11. "Aren't I supposed to be the one giving you dating advice?" Danica laughed. When she opened the door, her laughter faded into stunned silence. Elias Chen stood there in dark slacks and a charcoal sweater that made his shoulders look even broader than usual. Without his white coat and professional demeanor, he was somehow both more and less intimidating. "You look beautiful," he said, his eyes moving over her with gentle appreciation. "So do you," she replied, then blushed. "I mean, you look nice, different outside the hospital." He smiled, that rare, transformative smile that changed his entire face. "A good different, I hope." "Very good." They stood gazing at each other until Tasha called from inside the apartment. "You guys are still in the doorway, aren't you? Move it already." Elias laughed. Another revelation. "Your sister?" "Yes. Sorry about that." "Don't be. She sounds wonderful." He led her to his car, a sleek black sedan that probably cost more than Danica made in a year. As he opened the door for her, she couldn't help asking, "Where are we going?" "Somewhere quiet," he said, "where we can talk without interruption." The restaurant was small and elegant, tucked away on a side street in Manhattan. The maitre d' greeted Elias by name and led them to a secluded table in the corner. "You come here often?" Danica asked after they were seated. "Not really. But my family does." Elias's expression became guarded for the first time that evening. "The owner is an old friend of my father's." "Tell me about your family," Danica said, sensing there was more to the story. "In your letters, you mentioned your father taught you to be detached, to leave your heart at the door." Elias was quiet for a moment, running his finger along the rim of his water glass. "My father is Harold Chen, chief of surgery at Mount Sinai. My mother is Diana Chen, head of cardiology at Columbia. Medical royalty," Danica said, echoing Jenny's words. "That's what people call us." His tone was neutral, but Danica could hear the weight behind it. The Chen dynasty, 3 generations of doctors, 4 if you count my grandfather in Shanghai before the revolution. That's quite a legacy. It's quite a burden. Elias met her eyes. Everything in our house revolved around medicine. Dinner conversations were case studies. Vacations were scheduled around medical conferences, and the expectation, they were relentless. Is that why you write? Danica asked gently. The letters, is that how you express the emotions you were taught to suppress? His eyes widened slightly, surprised by her insight. Yes, I've been keeping journals since I was a child. It was the only safe place to put my feelings. He gave a self-deprecating smile. Pathetic, isn't it? A grown man who can perform open-heart surgery, but can't say what he feels out loud. I don't think it's pathetic at all, Danica said. I think it's human. We all find our own ways to cope with pain. The waiter arrived with menus, temporarily halting their conversation. After they ordered, Elias leaned forward, his expression earnest. What about you? Your letters gave me glimpses of your life, your sister, your dedication to your patients. But there's so much more I want to know. For the next hour they talked about everything. Danica's mother's illness and death, her struggle to raise Tasha while building her career, her dreams of eventually going back to school for advanced nursing. You've carried so much on your own, Elias said, his admiration evident. You never complain, never ask for help. I'm not very good at that, Danica admitted. Asking for help. Neither am I. He reached across the table, taking her hand. Maybe that's something we can learn together. The touch of his hand sent warmth up her arm. It was strange. They had kissed last night in the garden, a moment of pure emotion, but this deliberate touch in the middle of dinner felt even more intimate somehow. What happened with your father? She asked. Jenny, my friend at the hospital. She mentioned a falling out. Elias's expression clouded. It was 3 years ago. A young patient with a complex heart condition. My father wanted to try an experimental procedure, one that would have made for an impressive journal article if it worked. I thought it was too risky. What happened? I went over his head, brought my concerns to the ethics committee. Elias's jaw tightened at the memory. The procedure was delayed while they reviewed the case. My father was furious, said I'd betrayed the family, embarrassed him professionally. And the patient? The committee ruled in my father's favor. He performed the surgery. Elias paused. The patient died on the table. She was 19. Danica squeezed his hand. I'm sorry. After that, things were difficult at home. So I left, took a position at Manhattan Memorial, where I had no family connections, no legacy to uphold. It was the first decision I'd ever made without considering what my father would think. Do you regret it? Elias shook his head. No, it was the right choice. But it's been lonely. Until Herbert got sick and came to the hospital. And until I saw you. The vulnerability in his eyes made Danica's heart ache. How long had this brilliant, compassionate man been hiding behind his cold exterior, afraid to let anyone see the real him? Thank you for the letters, she said softly, for seeing me. No one has ever really seen me like that before. I've been watching you for months, he admitted. Not in a creepy way, he added quickly, making her smile. But I noticed you right away. The way you are with patients, the extra mile you always go. I wanted to tell you, but words aren't your first language, Danica finished for him. Exactly. He looked relieved that she understood. The first letter wasn't even meant for you to see. I wrote it after watching you with that scared patient, fighting sleep to hold her hand. I just needed to put the feeling into words. Then I kept it in my pocket for a week, taking it out sometimes to read it again. What made you decide to leave it in my locker? Elias looked embarrassed. Herbert caught me reading it. He asked who it was for, and when I told him, he said I was a coward for not giving it to you. Said life was too short for regrets. So the next day I slipped it into your locker. I was terrified you'd think it was strange. I did, at first, Danica admitted. But then I kept it, and I found myself hoping for more. The rest of dinner passed in a blur of conversation and shared smiles. By the time they finished dessert, Danica felt as if she'd known Elias for years, instead of hours. Outside the restaurant, he asked, "Would you like to go for a walk? It's a nice night." They strolled through the quiet streets, their hands finding each other naturally. It felt surreal to Danica. This man she had thought of as cold and distant now holding her hand, sharing his thoughts, looking at her as if she were the most fascinating person he'd ever met. "I have a confession," Elias said as they turned a corner. "I had our shifts aligned." "What do you mean?" "After the second letter, when I wasn't sure how you felt about them, I asked the scheduling coordinator to put us on the same shifts whenever possible." He looked slightly guilty. I know that's probably an abuse of my position, Danica laughed. I'd call it creative problem-solving. You're not angry? How can I be angry about getting more time with you? She squeezed his hand. Besides, we work well together. The patients benefit. His smile was all the answer she needed. Later that night, after Elias dropped her off at her apartment with a goodnight kiss that left her breathless, Danica found Tasha waiting up for her. Well? Tasha demanded. How was it? Wonderful, Danica said, unable to stop smiling. He's not at all what people think. He's thoughtful and deep and totally into you, Tasha finished. I could tell from the way he looked at you when you opened the door, like you were the best thing he'd ever seen. Danica blushed. It's early days yet. We'll see where it goes. But in her heart, she knew. This wasn't just a first date. This was the beginning of something that had been building for months through those letters, a connection based on truly seeing and being seen. The next night at work, Danica was nervous. How would they act around each other now? Would their professional relationship change? Would people notice? She needn't have worried. Elias was as professional as ever in front of colleagues and patients. Dr. Chen, efficient and focused. But there were small differences only she could see. The softening around his eyes when he looked at her, the way his hand brushed hers when they reviewed charts together, the private smile they shared across the nurse's station. Her first stop that night was Mr. Chang's room. His condition had worsened significantly. His breathing now labored even with maximum oxygen support, but his eyes lit up when he saw her. Ah, the nurse, he said weakly. Did you meet him? Danica smiled, taking his frail hand. Yes, Mr. Chang, I met him. Good, good. His eyes closed briefly, gathering strength. He needs someone, like you, someone to remind him he has a heart. He already knows that, Danica said gently. He just needed permission to show it. Mr. Chang nodded slightly. Tell him, I'm proud, very proud. I will. After her rounds, Danica found Elias in his office, reviewing patient files. He looked up when she entered, his face transforming with a smile that still took her breath away. Hi, he said. Hi yourself. She closed the door behind her. I just checked on Herbert. He's asking for you. Elias's smile faded. How is he? Not good. His oxygen levels are down and his heart rate is irregular. She hesitated, then delivered Mr. Chang's message. He wanted me to tell you he's proud of you. Very proud. Elias swallowed hard, blinking rapidly. Thank you. I'll go to him now. He stood, but before he could leave, Danica caught his hand. You don't have to be Dr. Chen with me, she said softly. It's okay to feel. For a moment he looked startled, as if no one had ever given him that permission before. Then, to her surprise, he pulled her into his arms, burying his face in her hair. I'm losing him, he whispered, the one person who ever really understood me. Danica held him tightly, feeling the slight tremor in his body. I know. I'm so sorry. They stood like that for a long moment, just holding each other in the quiet of his office. Then Elias straightened, visibly gathering himself. Thank you, he said, touching her face gently, for being here, for being you. He left to see Mr. Chang, and Danica returned to her duties, her heart full of a bittersweet ache. She was falling for this man, this complex, brilliant, wounded man who saw her so clearly. But she was also witnessing his pain as he prepared to lose his mentor, and there was nothing she could do to ease that burden, except be there. Herbert Chang died 3 days later, peacefully in his sleep. Elias was with him at the end, holding his hand just as Danica had taught him to do. The hospital held a small memorial service in the garden, where Danica and Elias had first revealed themselves to each other. Staff from all departments came to pay their respects to a man who, though only a patient for a short time, had touched many lives. Danica stood beside Elias as he spoke about his mentor, his wisdom, his compassion, his unwavering belief that medicine was about healing hearts as well as bodies. Throughout the speech, Elias's hand found hers, drawing strength from her presence. Afterward, as people mingled and shared memories, Danica noticed an older couple standing apart from the others. The man was tall and distinguished, with silver at his temples and a bearing that commanded respect. The woman beside him was elegant in a tailored suit, her posture perfect, her expression reserved. Your parents? Danica asked quietly. Elias nodded, his jaw tight. They came for Herbert. He was respected in medical circles. Are you going to speak to them? I should, but he made no move to approach them. Danica squeezed his hand. Would you like me to come with you? The gratitude in his eyes was answer enough. Together they crossed the garden to where the elder Chen stood. Father, mother, Elias said formally. Thank you for coming. Herbert was a fine doctor, his father said, his voice as cool as Elias's could sometimes be. One of the best of his generation. He was more than that, Elias replied. He was a fine human being. An uncomfortable silence fell. Then Elias said, I'd like you to meet someone. This is Danica Wells. She's a nurse here at Manhattan Memorial, and she's... He paused, then continued with quiet certainty. She's very important to me. Harold Chen's eyes flickered over Danica, assessing her with clinical detachment. A nurse? Yes, Elias said, his hand tightening around Danica's. One of the best I've ever worked with. Diana Chen stepped forward, her expression softening slightly. It's nice to meet you, Miss Wells. Any friend of Elias's is welcome in our home. It wasn't exactly a warm endorsement, but it was something. A door perhaps not wide open, but not slammed shut either. After a few more minutes of stilted conversation, the elder Chens moved away to speak with the hospital administrator. Elias let out a breath he seemed to have been holding. That went better than expected, he said. Your mother seems nice, Danica offered. She is, in her way. She's just shaped by my father's expectations. We all were. He looked at Danica with wonder in his eyes. Until now. Until you showed me another way to be. That night, after her shift, Danica found a familiar envelope in her locker. Smiling, she opened it. Today, I watched you stand beside me as I said goodbye to the man who taught me to be human. I watched you face my parents without flinching, your hand steady in mine, and I realized, this is what it means to not be alone anymore. I've spent my life hiding behind masks. The brilliant doctor, the dutiful son, the efficient surgeon. Never just Elias. Never just a man who feels too much and says too little. But with you, I don't need masks or perfect words. You see me, Danica, the real me, and somehow, miraculously, you haven't turned away. Herbert told me once that there are two types of love in this world, the kind that demands and the kind that frees. I've known too much of the first and not enough of the second. Until you, I'm learning slowly to speak what I feel, to let my heart show. It's terrifying and exhilarating all at once, but this I can say, in writing, and someday soon in words. I'm falling in love with you, Danica Wells. Not just the nurse who fights sleep to hold a patient's hand, not just the sister who sacrifices everything for family, but all of you, your strength, your kindness, your fierce heart. And for the first time in my life, I'm not afraid of the fall. Elias' tears blurred Danica's vision as she read the words. She folded the letter carefully and placed it in her bag with the others, a record of their beginning, a promise of their future. When she left the locker room, Elias was waiting in the hallway, a question in his eyes. I got your letter, she said, walking straight into his arms. And? His voice was tentative, hopeful. Danica looked up at him, this man who had seen her when no one else did, who had written his heart onto paper because he couldn't yet speak it aloud. I'm falling too, she whispered, and I'm not afraid either. His smile then was like sunrise after the longest night, full of warmth and promise and the start of something beautiful. 6 months later, Tasha burst into the apartment, waving an envelope. Here it came, my acceptance letter from NYU. Danica jumped up from the couch where she and Elias had been watching a movie. Let me see. They read the letter together, both of them tearing up at the full scholarship offer. I can't believe it, Tasha said, her voice choked with emotion. All those late nights studying, all those extra credit projects. I always knew you could do it, Danica said, hugging her sister tightly. Mom would be so proud. We should celebrate, Elias said, smiling at the sister's joy. In the months since he and Danica had begun dating, he had become a fixture in their small apartment, his initial awkwardness around Tasha giving way to a genuine bond. Dinner anywhere you want, Tasha, my treat. Can we go to that fancy Italian place you took Danica on your first date? Tasha asked. Absolutely. Later that night, after a celebratory dinner and Tasha's retreat to her room to call friends with her news, Danica and Elias sat on the small balcony of her apartment, looking at the city lights. Thank you, she said, leaning her head on his shoulder, for everything you've done for Tasha. The tutoring, the recommendation letters, the campus tour. No thanks needed. He kissed the top of her head. She's family. The word settled between them. Warm and right. Family. Something neither of them had much of, but were slowly building together. I have something for you, Elias said after a moment. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Danica's breath caught. Elias. It's not what you think, he said quickly, opening the box to reveal not a ring but a small silver key. It's a key to my apartment, I thought maybe you and Tasha might want to move in after she graduates next month. It's closer to the hospital for you, and closer to NYU for her. Are you sure? Danica asked, touched by the offer. It's a big step. I've never been more sure of anything. He took her hand, his eyes serious. I love you, Danica. I love your sister, and I want to build a life with you, a real life, not one dictated by expectations or fear. Danica looked at the key, small, silver, ordinary, but it represented something extraordinary, a future she'd stopped believing was possible, a chance at happiness that didn't require her to sacrifice her own needs. Yes, she said, taking the key. We'd love to. Elias's smile was radiant. I was hoping you'd say that, and there's something else. He pulled an envelope from his other pocket. One more letter, the last one, I promise. Curious, Danica opened it. My dearest Danica, when I first wrote to you, I was a man who had forgotten how to feel, a doctor who had learned to heal everyone but himself, a son who had never become his own man. You changed all that, not with grand gestures or demands, but with the quiet strength of who you are, a woman who carries others without breaking, who sees beauty in the darkest places, who taught me that vulnerability isn't weakness, but the greatest strength of all. 6 months ago, I signed my first letter, a friend, because I was afraid to be more. Today, I sign this last letter with a promise. I will spend the rest of my life showing you in words and actions that you are seen, you are cherished, you are never alone. This isn't an ending, but a beginning. The first page of the story we'll write together. One day, one patient, one moment of joy at a time. With all my heart, Elias. Danica looked up from the letter, her eyes shining with tears. I thought you said words weren't your first language. They aren't, he said, pulling her close. But for you, I'm learning. And as they sat together under the stars, Danica realized that Herbert Chang had been right all along. Life was short, even when it was long. The trick was not to waste a moment of it hiding from love. She had spent years being needed, but never chosen. Loved by her patients, respected by her co-workers, but romantically, she'd always been too much, or not enough, until Elias. Until a man who saw her completely and loved every part, a man who had fallen for her in silence, and now loved her in the light.